Hello, and welcome to Sonata She Wrote. Today I'll be analyzing the finale of Mahler's First Symphony. We discussed a little context in the first movement video, so let's get right into the music. Mahler makes two references to another work right between the first two rehearsal numbers, so let's hear it. In this brief section, we have two references to Liszt's Dante Symphony, which will recur many times throughout the work. First, the cross motif, here. If you're familiar with Liszt's later music, when he took to Catholicism very seriously, you're no doubt familiar with this motive, which itself is a reference to chant. It exists in both major and minor forms and appears throughout the Dante Symphony. An example of the major mode is directly at the beginning of the Magnificat. In terms of Dante's Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso, this is Paradise. Because for Liszt, the motif is a representation of the Christian cross, it can imply the redemption of the major mode in the Magnificat, a major second, but also suffering through the minor mode, a minor second, which you can hear in this example, which is Liszt's work for organ and chorus depicting the stations of the cross. In the third station, Jesus falls for the first time. Mahler uses this motif, and later, Wagner's Grail leitmotif from Parsifal, which was also influenced by Liszt's cross, as the generative motif of this symphony. The second influence of Liszt's Dante Symphony in this work are what's commonly referred to as Inferno triplets. You can see them here and here. They're always chromatic and always ripping downward, representing a descent into hell, and you can hear their origin here in the Dante Symphony. You may be thinking to yourself, wow, this seems to be a lot of religious imagery for an apparently secular work, and you're not wrong. But I think it's probably more accurate to think of these motives as Mahler drawing on a collection of clearly understood symbols to convey meaning, rather than as representations of the thing itself. In the book Approaches to Meaning in Music, Byron Almen writes that the cross and the grail are both ambivalent symbols, and they are ambivalent in similar respects. Both embody the convergence of suffering and redemption. These symbols also engage two of the three most important symbolic constellations for Western society, the biblical tradition and the medieval romances, the third being Greco-Roman mythology. In the context of the first movement, the necessity of suffering for the divine, read culturally sanctioned and valorized, hero, is indicated. I'm not going to be diving into Mahler's thoughts on religion in this video, both because I don't find it that interesting, and also because the First Symphony was written well before the sort of catalyzing conversion point in his life. But I think these religious references, as well as Almen's quote, contextualize the scale of this work. This is a journey that begins in the Inferno, with the shadow of defeat looming over it, and the implied trajectory is therefore out and into Paradiso, or victory. Similar to the first movement, we're in a generative space. The music is setting the scene and introducing the principal motifs of the movement. You've no doubt noticed that the cross motif also fits within the generative perfect fourth, to which many of the symphony's themes can be reduced. As such, this section is sort of a quasi-introduction and also a P0 module. Let's continue listening until the introduction of the primary theme.